My guest today is Christina Naime, who's a co-founder of Pretty Penny Films and co-host of the podcast After Queerful Consideration, and who's also an aspiring music producer. She is going to share her inspirational story with us today. Welcome to my show.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I am really looking forward to this. My listeners don't yet know this, but I have the wonderful opportunity to interview Christina and her co-founder, Kim Ari Peterson. And so you're going to also hear in the next version of the show, you'll hear the whole story of how Pretty Penny Films was created. But I could not wait to hear Christina's amazing story as well. So tell us, where are you originally from?
So I come from a small island in the Caribbean called Barbados. But I moved to Trinidad, a bigger, small island. I moved to Trinidad when I was 7. My mom is Jamaican, so I've got quite a bit of a Caribbean mixture inside of me. But originally, my family is from Syria and Lebanon.
Oh, wow.
So a whole bunch of different worldviews packed into one little me.
Wow. I can't imagine what the conversations were like around the dinner table.
It's a lot of different accents, that's for sure.
Sure. Wow. And so you're currently in New York City.
I am.
How did you get over there? How did you transfer over there?
So I guess my story starts where I was studying in Florida, and I was trying my hardest to get a visa, and after graduation, work, in the U.S., find a way to stay here. And that was in 2008, just when, a little thing called the recession hit. And so I basically went back home to Trinidad, and I started working with a Big Four company there that I'd interned with. And after about 3 years, I started seeing how the economy was changing, and I thought, okay, maybe this is my chance to get back to the States. And I started looking around at different jobs within my company, and I saw that there was this position opening in New York for financial modeling. So I went to my parents and I said, I'm going to apply for this modeling job in New York. And they looked at me like, what are you saying?
That's hysterical.
So without never actually being in New York, I just knew that I'm going to move here. I'm going to live in that city one day. And, I applied, and the process was so quick. I applied I remember it was October. In November, they got back to me. In December, I had the interviews. And in March, I was living in New York City.
Wow.
So, yeah, it was fairly quick.
Just even hearing that, my mind is kind of swirling like, oh my gosh, I just started the process and now I'm living there. And then, that must have been so different. Obviously, because if you felt like you couldn't get back to New York, but then or back to the States, and then you ended up back home, and then probably to reacclimate to that culture, and they'd be like, oh crap, now I got to reacclimate back to what it is in New York City. Yeah.
And, it was a little tough. I've never really seen myself as an island girl. And I say that in the sense that island life wasn't enough for me. For a variety of reasons. I, at that time, knew that I was a queer woman. And, I grew up in a very religious household. And the society itself was not very open to the LGBTQ plus community at that point in time. So there were a variety of reasons why I knew that my future just wasn't here. And that I needed to find a space where I felt like I could truly be myself without any limitation.
Yeah, exactly. Well, help me understand that. So to have a religious background and to recognize that you are a queer person, I can't imagine what that was like, in the sense of you have multiple worldviews and family views all coming together to say, this is who we think you should be. How did you recognize within yourself that, no, this is who I am, this is my truth?
That was a battle. I think the hardest battle for me was letting go of my own expectations of what I thought my life was going to look like. Being raised in a Middle Eastern household, you're learning to cook, and you're learning to clean, and you're learning to do all these very motherly things because you're being groomed to be a wife and a mother. I was very fortunate that my parents were, we were a family of all girls. So not only were we being groomed to do those things, but we were also told, do whatever you want, be whoever you want. But that was kind of like within reason.
Within what we say.
So there, it was a little bit of it was an internal battle, because there were all these pieces of me that I thought I wanted to be. And I thought I needed to like boys. I thought I needed to, get this stable job, and I needed to get married at a certain time. And the hardest part was having to sort of break those strongholds that were sort of, that I kind of held over my life. And it got to a point where I was actually in New York. So fast forward, I'm out of, the Caribbean. I'm sitting in one of the most liberal cities in the world, and I just completely broke. And I said, you know what, this is where my religious piece is going to come in. I was like, you know what, God, I am who you made me to be.
Yes.
And I'm tired of fighting this battle. And so if you bring whoever it is that you want me to love, you bring them into my life, and I will love them. And
that's
powerful, a few months after that, I actually met my girlfriend on a work trip.
Oh, that's wonderful. I love that.
That might be a different story.
Wow. To sit there and so you're in an environment that, like you said, is very liberal, that would accept you, and half the time they don't even care per se, because it's just, they accept people for who they are. But you were in that position of saying, okay, now I'm in the environment that I'm accepted. Yeah. What was it for you to say, okay, well, how do I fully embrace this then? Because like you said, you have the religious aspect, but then you're in the environment that says you are you and you're amazing. What happened for you where the religious part came out?
I'll tell you. So that moment when I just cried in front of God, that it really did break me. But one of the things that were super powerful, I was still seeing, women at the time. I'd even tried to date a man. That was the most uncomfortable thing I've ever done in my life. And I've never told anyone. So guess what? Why not put it out here, for the whole world to now know? Right. That was really uncomfortable.
It sounds uncomfortable knowing you now.
But an ex-girlfriend of mine actually told me something. She said, come to terms with who you are so you can stop regretting your life. And that hit me at it was very powerful. It's one of three things that I sort of hold very dear to me, but three life-changing things. And when she said it to me, I sort of realized, that's it. I can't keep regretting my life. Yeah. I can't keep pretending that there's this world in New York and there's this persona in New York that I play. And then when I go home to the Caribbean, there's this persona there that I play. I was tired of doing, and then when I'm in church, there's this other persona that I play. I was tired of living what felt like three separate lives. Wow. And so at that point, I just went to my parents and I said, look, it was the second time actually that I was coming out to them, because the first time didn't go as good. So I just went to them and I said, I lay it all on the table. And I was like, you know what, this is me. And it doesn't mean that I don't love God. And it doesn't mean that, I'm, still not the same person that I've been all these years. It just means that I'm all of these people.
How do they respond to that?
Amazingly. It made me wish that I had done it. So
You're like, wait a minute, why didn't I do this before?
I know. So right off the bat, my dad, open arms. He said, I love you. There's nothing you can do. I've always been your supporter. He's just been daddy bear. He's always been daddy bear. Cool. My mom, though, surprised me. This is where I realized that my mom herself went through a bit of a journey. Because the first time I came out, the response was, well, you know what we believe. Yeah. And so that kind of put me back into the closet. But then the second time I came out.
Well, let me stop it. It put you back in the closet, probably in front of them. But as you explored your life, then you were told, the way you understood that was, okay, I'm still going to be me, but now I have to create this duality of now these different personas have to be created.
Yes, but also the shame and the confusion, because then my battle wasn't just within, my battle then was with God as well. Because this is what we believe. This is, this is doctrine. But I basically got to the point of freedom between myself and God first. And then that's basically what gave me the courage to go to my parents and say, look, it's not a phase. Yeah. This is who I am. So I realized in that second time, my mom, she just, again, opened me with, open arms. And she just said, there's nothing you can do to stop me from loving you. Wow. It doesn't matter. And
parents hearing this right now, I'm just curious, what changed for your mother when the first time she said something, and then the second time, which was a beautiful response? What happened in their own life where things, maybe they had an epiphany of that things are different? If it could change their belief system.
So my mom and I never directly addressed it. But what I do know is, she used to text me or call me and she'd say, I've been reading this book, or I watched this documentary, or I was talking to so-and-so. And there's this book called God and the Gay Christian that I've never read, but apparently it's a good book. And she has it. And so she started to educate herself.
Interesting.
Not by my prodding, not out of anything I would have done, but of her own accord to say, I need to find a way to bridge this gap between me and my child.
Yes. Wow. And I love that because
that meant a lot.
Yeah. I mean, because when someone actually puts in that time and energy to find an answer, that shows that their commitment and their investment to say, I don't get it, but I want to learn more. I want to create a dialogue. I want to be able to say, I can love my child unconditionally, even though I know she did before, but there may have been conditions she didn't realize, but now she can fully come and say, I love you regardless. And what a beautiful.
And to accept that she may have been in a place years ago where she needed to grow from.
Yeah.
That is growth. The first point is realizing, hey, maybe the current viewpoint that I hold of this isn't the only viewpoint or the right viewpoint.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think what really helped her, to be honest, is when I came out to my grandmother. Now, I was terrified. After I came out to my
matriarch,
parents, not only was she the matriarch, she was the religious, you go to grandma when you need something done and someone to move heaven, you go to grandma and she lays down. This woman would fix her dishwasher by slapping her hand on it and saying in Jesus' name, and it would get fixed, So I was terrified to tell my grandmother. But when I came out to her, she just threw her arms open and she gave me the biggest hug and just, all these affirmations of her love for me and that there was nothing I could do. She did say, the one thing she did say was that she just wants to see the fruit of my loins, which is still possible.
Yeah, that's possible.
But I think
hysterical.
I think that helped my mom, knowing that, the religious matriarch was okay with this and that it didn't change anything.
I had heard this. Yeah, that's gorgeous. I heard the story of this woman, a very religious woman, very prominent in her Christian faith. And her son had come out and had all these difficulties and had just had this really horrible breakup. And but she really struggled with accepting him. And so when he was bawling and crying, she came over and she hugged him. And she said, in that moment, she goes, I felt God say to me, who are you to say he can't love someone? A broken heart is a broken heart. And she said for her, that was so powerful. And she just wept because she thought, how judgmental was I before, not realizing that, for one, love is love. Broken heart is broken hearted. In that, as whatever people's faith is, but to understand that as you grow and develop, we all have our own journey. We all have our path. Yep. We all will love whomever it is we're going to love. One thing I do love, in fact, I just had someone on my show the other day, I was talking about this. For those of you who do read the Bible, one of my favorite Psalms is Psalm 139. And that talks about how we are fearfully and wonderfully made. And at the very end of it, it talks about, God, search my heart, point out those things in me that are not of you. I want, essentially, just every moment as I get to know you, show me what I need to change. And so regardless of how people believe, how we should live and how we shouldn't live, if we continue, and the way I look at this, if we continue to pray that prayer or read that Psalm and are open to that, then the path that God has for us will always be fulfilled. And so for 100%. me, that's something I really cling to in my own life as I grow and develop in my own way, is to just say, God, for me, I really want you to show me what it is I need to do, who I need to talk to, who I don't need to talk to. And if we're not open to that, then we can get astray. And that's just in anything, whether you're gay, straight, whatever.
Anyone.
It has nothing to do with one's identity. It just happens to do with one's life and the purpose for our life.
It's so funny you say that. I actually plan to get that tattooed.
Oh, do you? Oh my gosh.
Yes, I do. I'm just waiting for things to open back up.
I love it. Well, I want to transition over into Pretty Penny Films. You are one of the co-founders of that, and I know that you really, in the productions that you have, you really represent just diverse and underrepresented individuals. With your life, how did your past really help you create this amazing production company?
So, and I know we'll probably talk about it when we meet with Kim, but when Kim and I first started this, we recognized instantly there was a void in Hollywood. There are certain buckets that you got to fit in order to be presented on screen. And if you don't fit those buckets, your career is somewhat limited.
Yeah.
And Kim and I saw this and realized that, we don't really look like the people in those buckets. Granted, things are changing a little bit. But, we're like, here is a need that we need to address. There is this huge gap, not only just for whether you're brown, immigrant, people of color, non-binary, gay, lesbian, straight, there's just such a gap of representation just across the board that we need to step in. We need to bridge that gap. One of the things that personally we want to do as well is to open a door to the Caribbean market. There's so much talent in the Caribbean, in terms of acting and dance and theater. There's just amazing comedy. We have some amazing comedians, as well. And there's just so much that we want to be able to highlight and sort of open the door to global perspectives, to, whether it's female empowerment, being underrepresented from a female voice, whether it's LGBTQ plus stories. I'm actually working on a pilot right now.
Oh, I love that.
Which is somewhat inspired by my own story, so we want to basically show the world something different.
Yeah. And I can't wait to see this pilot. If there's anything I can do to help in any way, please let me know. I would love to support you and endorse you in any way that I can.
I love that.
Would you kind of, I guess, just reflect on all that, where you've come and and what with Pretty Penny Films, how it's developed. How do you think that's even impacted your own life as you create an opportunity for more people? How has it impacted you personally?
Extremely fulfilling. Coming out of a corporate background where I had so much stability and so much rigid structure, it's been freeing. Yeah. It's been freeing to finally explore a side of me that I knew was always in there. Yes. The most creative thing I could do in my previous career was like PowerPoint presentations. And,
wow.
And I was always told that I created the best PowerPoint presentations. That's really great, but
that sounds really depressing hearing that. No offense, but
exactly. But so the ability to finally explore what's inside. I've been writing. I've been producing more music. I've been just studying and honing different crafts that I didn't realize were so resident within me, so the ability to finally tap into those things and to just see them start to, they're starting to bloom, the little buds are coming out of the soil.
Yes. Well, I love that because we only have a couple more seconds, but I know that you are a music producer. I mean, so to go from this place that was so regimented in the corporate world, which is beautiful for many people, but for you as you evolved in the next iteration of who you are, to see such a beautiful, the creativity of that to really flourish, that must, like you said, must be incredibly fulfilling.
Absolutely. No regrets. 100%.
What kind of music do you produce?
I kind of do a bunch of different things. Seeing that I'd probably put my taste more if you listen to Sia.
Oh,
that's sort of, I kind of like that very ethereal sounding, deep, heavy, sort of emotive music. But I also love playful sounds. I love playing with, I don't know if you're familiar with soca beats. I love playing with soca. I love bringing some of my Middle Eastern roots into music. So basically anything that gives you, a joie de vivre and the desire to move. So beautiful. It's a little, I'm still trying to find my musical voice right now. But I'm just going with what I enjoy.
Yeah. Have you anything produced that we can listen to? That I can direct people to?
Oh boy.
No, I mean to put you on the spot like that.
maybe not yet. Only because there's the critic inside that always thinks everything isn't finished as yet. But keep an eye out.
I love that. Well, Christina Naime, it has been an absolute pleasure having you on my show today. If my listeners want to find out more information about you, to learn all the things you're doing, to also find out about Pretty Penny Films, where would they find all this information online?
So all on Instagram at Pretty Penny Films. Personally, I'm at cnaime, at After Queerful Consideration for the podcast. But also for Pretty Penny Films, find us online. Same name, prettypennyfilms.com. Email us, info@prettypennyfilms.com.
Awesome. Christina, thank you so much for being an awesome guest on my show. I had so much fun talking to you.
I did too. I really appreciate it. Thanks so much.